Here's 4 live-action remakes that were better than the animated original. Yes, I'm starting with Speed Racer because this movie is the textbook for how to adapt animation into live action. What makes animation great is that it is big and over the top and larger than life, larger than live action. And Speed Racer understands that if you want live action to capture the feeling of larger than life, don't you dare be boring. That's where I think most live-action remakes fall short. If you want to capture the magic of the animated original, you don't get Jon Favreau, you don't get Kenneth Branagh, you don't get Mark Forster, you don't get Rob Marshall, because all of them are good directors, but they all have very functional cinematography styles. Their visual style is based on the simple philosophy of get the point across. Whatever the character's feeling, whatever the plot point is, focus on that, instead of the style of the Wachowskis, or Guy Ritchie, or James Wan, or Sam Raimi, which is be interesting. Guy Ritchie did one of Disney's live-action remakes, and no matter what you hated about Aladdin, you can't deny it had the best camera work out of all of Disney's live-action remakes. And that wasn't even him going full Ritchie, that was one of his most restrained movies ever. Here are 3 more that fit that philosophy of let live-action be larger than life. I think the live-action version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas is better than the animated version from 1966. Yes, this version is much more book accurate, but this just takes advantage of the medium of live action so well. The set design, the costumes, the hair and makeup, not just for the Grinch, but for all of the Whos, is just incredible. There are more Dutch angles in this movie than every other type of shot combined. And the camera is constantly swinging around like it's drunk on its own eggnog and like it can't stand on its own 3 legs. It's incredible. And that sort of camera work is something that live action is quite frankly better at than the medium of animation. Because animation, you technically can do that, but you have to really work for it. Live action is built for that kind of shot. To the point that that's the sort of shot that you get by accident when you make a mistake. And even the editing does a fantastic job at communicating the themes of the over-commercialization of Christmas by just making everything so big and in your face. I could talk about this movie for much longer. Let's move on. Even if you didn't like The Cat in the Hat, I think you might say it's better than the animated version from 1971. Again, this version is more book accurate, but this thing is just fun, and weird, and zany, and over the top, and larger than life. Last one, I don't think there's too many people who would say the animated version of Lord of the Rings by Ralph Bakshi is better than the live-action version by Peter Jackson. This is the least weird and zany of any of the movies on this list, but it still works better in live action than animation because Peter Jackson was willing to get larger than life. Larger than life is something that Peter Jackson's generally pretty good at. Now, I know those last 3 are readaptations of the source material rather than remakes of an animated movie, but the same thing is true of the Scarlett Johansson version of Ghost in the Shell and the 2020 version of Mulan, and we call both of those live-action remakes, so these still count. But the point is that when you're adapting animation into live action, bring the same energy as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Batman Forever, The Addams Family, Repo the Genetic Opera, or freaking Tank Girl. And please, for the love of Sam Raimi, have some interesting camera work in there somewhere. Follow for more film talk.